Good morning. I'll be reading a selection of various scriptures this morning from Isaiah, Luke, Corinthians, Galatians, and Philippians. So it's all over the place today. The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives and release from darkness for the prisoners. And this is Jesus speaking. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. And I can do all things through him who gives me strength.
Well, it's already been a good morning, and thank you all for being here. It's a blessing to actually come up here and stand before you today. I'd like to thank Pastor Tim for giving me the honor of speaking with you today. I'd like to thank my congregation who allows us to have the opportunity for personal testimony from time to time, and my friends who are part of Set Free for being here to be supportive of it. And a special thank you to everyone who was involved in the making of the public service announcement that we'll screen. It'll have its world premiere in just a little bit. And so I'd just like to thank you for that. And mostly I'm thankful to God who allows us to speak today. And so I just ask that he would be with us in this time and that we would be able to go forward. And I come to you today as the chair of the Evangelism and Missions Committee for the church, and I share with you about a latest project that we did for our Hands and Feet ministry, which is a ministry that we do once a month where we are working to go out and be the hands and feet to Christ in our community, and we do lots of different things. And this month we chose to do something a little more creative than picking up or setting up tables and chairs. We created a video, and I also come to you speaking as the chair of the Dieselberg Mission Partnership Team, which is Jeff Nanny Dieselberg and Nightlight. And then I also am the new interim director for Set Free Dubuque, which is a local nonprofit organization that works to fight human trafficking here in Dubuque. So lots of different hats for me to wear. And so let's start with Nightlight. Thanks to this church, in 2007, I was sent to Nightlight to work for 2.5 months with Annie. And Annie is the one on the far, well, I guess she's your far left. She's the one with the white dress on. And we were doing outreach ministry that night in Bangkok, Thailand. And then the other picture is a picture of the women at Nightlight, and I just had the opportunity to be there with the people and spend time working with people who'd been trafficked sexually, and it was an amazing experience. I never really thought that I would get the opportunity to do something like go to Thailand, and it was just a blessing that this church provided and that God just opened up so many ways. I originally wanted to be a writer. You know, that was my dream as a small child. And although I'd written for the church newsletter and I'd written a couple of articles, I hadn't ever done anything on a professional level, but that was a blessing that came to me after my time in Thailand. And in case you're curious, the reason I don't have shoes on is because of my time in Thailand. You'll see that in a little bit. But just in case, there are some faces that were like, what's going on with that? So I'll let you know, just a little peek ahead of time. I wanted to be an artist, but not an artist like Bob Ross, who could paint happy trees on canvas, because trust me, you don't even want to see my stick figures. I wanted to be somebody who could paint words on a page and have them come out be amazing and beautiful. But you know, I was a mom for a long time, and so I never really thought that writer was something that I could get the opportunity to do. But it's something that I got to do, and I think in some ways it was a blessing because of the fact that I was obedient, and through Christ went to Thailand, and I came back home, and not only did he bless me by letting me become a published author, he let me become a published filmmaker. But let's talk a little bit more about Nightlight first. Nightlight, for those of you who don't know, is an international organization, and that is their mission statement up there. I won't read it to you unless you can't read it. Can you guys read it in the back? Okay. So Nightlight's extraordinary, and it's wonderful, and it's powerful, and if we had the opportunity to, it looks like Annie Dieselberg, who's the founder of Nightlight, will be able to join us sometime next year. And so that's exciting news to know. But I thought rather than just telling you a little bit about Nightlight, we thought we'd let Annie, because Pastor Tim suggested this video. So we're going to watch this video about Annie. Dan, are you ready to show it?
To see people know that they are loved, to know who they are, to know their value, and to be able to live in a free world. My name is Annie Dieselberg, and I am founding CEO of Nightlight. I grew up living on several different continents, and I have a passion to fight against injustice and to love people. There is a lot of injustice in the world that leads to exploitation of vulnerable people. And I have a heart to see those vulnerable people, to know freedom, and to be able to find their true identities, to be able to work with dignity. My husband and I came to Bangkok in 1994. I started doing outreach to women in prostitution in the local bars. When I would meet them, they would tell me that they didn't want to be there. If there was anything else they could do, they would have chosen that. So I started Nightlight in order to provide them jobs with dignity, where they could also find holistic transformation and restoration. When I started Nightlight, I started thinking that it could be vocational training for women. But as I listened to the women's stories, I realized that what they really wanted was a secure job, where they could provide for their families and not worry about where the next income was coming from. And so then I realized that what we really needed to do was just create jobs that would give dignity to the women and allow them to have confidence and security. Nightlight makes a variety of products. We started out with the jewelry, which is handmade using semi-precious stones. Then we also make silkscreen t-shirts and do sewing of athletic wear, as well as fine beading on ornaments.
ก็เมื่อก่อนก็ทำงานที่ถนนก็คิดว่าชีวิตของตัวเองไม่มีคุณค่าแต่เมื่อมาทำงานที่ไนท์ไลท์ก็ได้พบว่าชีวิตของเรามีคุณค่าเพราะว่าสามารถทำอะไรหลายสิ่งหลายอย่างที่เมื่อก่อนทำไม่ได้อย่างตอนนี้ก็ทำสกรีนเสื้อแล้วก็ร้องเพลงแล้วก็เล่นดนตรีก็ทำให้รู้สึกว่าตัวเรามีคุณค่ามากขึ้นค่ะค่ะตั้งแต่ที่มาทำงานในไลท์นะคะก็ได้สัมผัสถึงเกี่ยวกับความหวังที่ตัวเองเมื่อก่อนไม่มีความหวังเลยแต่ได้มีความหวังแล้วก็ได้มีชีวิตที่เริ่มต้นใหม่กับงานของไนท์ไลท์ที่นี่ก็คือจิวเวลรี่นั่นเองค่ะ
I hope that the women will know they are loved, that they will discover their true value and their beautiful identities, that they will live to full potential, that they will be able to provide for their families, but also be able to develop themselves so they can contribute back to the world.
So it's kind of hard for me to watch that video because a little bit because some of those women in the video are women that I actually had the opportunity to witness with, to dance with, which no one wants to see, and more importantly, I got to see some of those women be baptized while I was there in Thailand, and so they were amazing. And to see them move from having been in the streets, having been in the brothels, to being people who are standing up and leading worship is amazing and wonderful. When you walked into Nightlight, that's what you would see, this picture of the shoes. And it was kind of cool to be able to do that every day. So you walked in and you might not be able to see it all the way in the back, but those of you who are up front should be able to see that a lot of flip-flops, and yet some spiky heels, and some regular street shoes. And so for me, it was a very poignant picture to see that happen when I would walk in every morning and I would see that the women were there. And sometimes I'd come and I'd get there and there wouldn't be any shoes there, but I would come out at lunchtime and here would be all of these shoes, and you could just see these were people whose lives were being transformed, and the people who had on the flip-flops were those who had been set free, and yet the women who were wearing the very high spiky heels were either Annie, because she's really about this tall, or they would be the women who were coming and seeking refuge, seeking a way to be set free. And so it was just, you could tell who was in the building based on whose shoes were there. And that was kind of powerful for me. And I actually used that in my first presentation. And then every year I try to stay up to date on what's going on in the world, what are the statistics, what's happening as far as the world of human trafficking as a whole. And one of the things that I use and do that with is the United States State Department has a trafficking in persons report that comes out. And this year, the trafficking in persons report had this picture, which you can see is taken outside of a brothel. And here are a bunch of women's shoes. And this was actually a quote. The president has that quote there. I've made the words bigger so that way you could be able to read them, but I think of their power in these words. Today we continue the long journey toward America and a world where liberty and equality are not reserved for some, but extended to all. And I just, the idea that we live in a place and a time where people are not free is painful. And I think that it's something that we need to embrace. It's something I'm grateful that we as a church have embraced for 15 years. This idea that we would stand in a way to help set people free. Dan, it won't move. Will you push it ahead one? Thank you. And that brings us to Set Free, which is why I've got the shirt on and why we did the thing and the special pictures down below. Set Free is a local organization that was started about 3 years ago by a group of women who came together and had a vision saying that we needed to fight human trafficking not in faraway countries, but within our own state, with our own city. And so about a year and a half ago, I got the opportunity to join with them. And then in October, I became part of their board and became their volunteer coordinator. And then last month, I named the interim executive director while we try to put together a vision, because we realize there's so much work to be done, that what needs to happen is that we need to have an organization that's active and engaged and employing people in the process of getting people out of trafficking, because trafficking is happening here in the city. It is happening on a regular enough basis that we're getting phone calls from the police department. We're getting them from agencies such as Hope House. We're talking and making connections to organizations like the Domestic Violence Center, working with the other women's shelters. So far, the work that I've done has specifically been with women who are or are potentially in positions of being trafficked. And then I've also been out educating people. Had the opportunity to speak recently at Four Oaks, which is a facility where they had not only their students, but they also had the students' guardians there. And it was an opportunity to talk to a group of people who are the biggest target, because they are in school and they are young and they are vulnerable. Many of them are in tragic family situations and strife because they're having trouble in school. It is such an easy target for a child to be romanced away from parental control, whether it's a good family or a bad family, at a time when they're at that age. And so it was wonderful to be able to talk to them about, here are some things that you need to be aware of And the conversation moved to a point where some of them later on and talked to their teachers and began talking about the fact that they had things going on in their lives that they knew now to be aware of, or they confessed to being somewhere on that continuum toward becoming trafficked. And so to know that you're having that kind of direct conversation with people who are at risk and who are being in the life, it's amazing to know that you can intercede for a 45-minute conversation, and it may save their life, and it may help them that if they do follow down that path, that they now have a resource of knowing who to contact, who to reach out to, who to say, how can we serve you? Now, we're a very young organization, and so as that very young organization, we need your prayers. We need some guidance. We're looking for more members to join our board. We're looking for creating more networks for different resources of what to do. We've got a relationship already with the Wings of Refuge, which is the only human trafficking shelter in the state, at least the only one active at the moment. We want to continue to grow a relationship with the police department and with the medical staff and the hotel industries, because those are, again, places where they're front line, and so they're places to reach out. We're looking for more opportunities to go out and teach. I've been asked to talk to the people at Iowa Workforce Development, and so the Iowa Works program has invited us in and said, come and let us teach. And so I'll be doing that next month. But we also need to be engaged in understanding that there are opportunities for direct engagement in human trafficking settings. And so that's kind of the big picture of what's going on with Set Free. It worked great. These are a few of the things that we've done. We've done nefarious screenings, which we did here. Pink Room is another movie that we found that we're looking at doing screenings for. Any Child Anywhere, you guys may remember, is the opportunity where we did Hands and Feet last year, and we were down at the Grand River Center, and thank you as a church for having been involved in that. The Set Free PSA is something that we filmed, and we're going to get to watch in just a couple of seconds here. Dan is going to pull that up. J1 is a sponsored film that we did during the film festival because we thought we would take the opportunity when there was a international audience to sponsor a film and begin the conversation about trafficking on that level. And then IJM Freedom Sunday is an opportunity coming up later this year on September 25th that I'll be having a conversation with Pastor Tim about, and hopefully the E&M committee, and see if it's something that we want to look at doing, and possibly something that we can coordinate other churches into doing. And then the Walk to Freedom is something that we're organizing in Set Free, where we will just do an awareness walk downtown. We'll start at the Roshek building, walk around a path that we can maybe do a prayer walk kind of thing through, but it'll be quiet, and should be exciting. So those are things that we've done and things that we're looking to do in the future, and inviting you in to join. And then Dan, you can go ahead and pull up the PSA and we'll watch it when he gets done. Like I said, we filmed this with members of the church as the cast. It was filmed by the Great River Film Initiative and members of Set Free.
Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. Over me.
Excuse me, I have seen this logo all day. What does it stand for, and why are people wearing it?
Today is the World Day Against Trafficking in Persons, and the logo is for Set Free Dubuque.
Set Free Dubuque, what is that?
Set Free is a nonprofit organization that exists to educate the community, advocate for survivors, and eliminate the demand for modern-day slavery.
Modern-day slavery, what is that?
Human trafficking is any organized criminal activity in which human beings are treated as possessions to be controlled and exploited, such as by being forced into prostitution, involuntary labor, or illegal organ harvesting. If you have any questions or concerns, please call the number on the screen.
Dawn came up with this idea of doing Dawn came up with the idea of doing this because we were having a committee meeting of what are we going to do with hands and feet this month? What are we going to do with hands and feet this month? And because we knew it was going to be set free, we wanted to do something different. And so extra hand for Dawn. I talked just a little bit about how we got to the point where this was something we could do. And that is because, you know, I'd said at the beginning, I wanted to be a writer. And then God gave me that opportunity. And in fact, I've got 2 books that were published. Those are the ones in yellow. And those were a direct result, I believe, of my time spent in Thailand, because I came back home and my job changed. And the fact that my company let me go was amazing. And they gave me the opportunity to go and move forward and create this opportunity. And then the one book came along, and then the other book came along a little bit later on. But around the same time that I began to be able to write books, I also had the opportunity to make my first film. And all those other titles are just some of the films that I've had a chance to make since that 7-year period. And it's just sort of amazing to me how sometimes God puts things into your life that you don't know why they're there. You know, a number of years ago, back like in the 90s, I was a Girl Scout leader in Virginia. And then my husband decided he wanted out of the Navy, and we moved back. But my experience as a Girl Scout leader in Virginia gave me an opportunity to be ready to be a service unit director at the Girl Scout Council here in Dubuque. And then while I was in Dubuque, they said, oh, we need to have you trained in how to do volunteer management. So they sent me to New York. I learned how to be a volunteer manager, write a volunteer management system in New York. I went to Thailand thinking I was going to teach it English, and instead I wrote a volunteer management system, because that's why I needed to be in Thailand. I thought it was about English, but instead it was about this other thing. And God made me qualified to do the job that I needed to do way back here, and I didn't realize that this is what I was going to do there. And I see that going to Thailand gave me the blessing to get to do these things. And then because I had the blessing to get to do those things, I've moved forward and we were able to make that public service announcement. I never would have been able to do that had I not had all before. And so I just think that it's one of those things where there are times in our lives when we wonder, why are we doing these things? You ever feel that way? Where God's letting you, why are you doing this to me, God? You know, but He's got a plan for you. So when you're in that moment and you're thinking, this is hard, or you're thinking in that moment, this is odd, just say yes to it. Because maybe in the saying yes to this in the moment, 5 years down the road, you're going to be someplace like Thailand. Or 7 years down the road, you're going to be making a film, or whatever that thing is in your heart that you would dearly love to see happen, can happen because you've accepted the freedom of the moment to do what it is that you're doing. And so that's where I would like to move your thinking, is the idea of, yeah, I mean, is it cool I got to do those things? Oh yeah, it's awesome. It's fun, it's quirky, it's odd. But it's more than that, because I've had the opportunity to tell the story of homeless people in our city because I made those other films. I've had the opportunity to create a piece about Alzheimer's awareness and help teach people how to minister to people with Alzheimer's because I said yes. we have this opportunity here to create this little public service announcement and begin a conversation that's very hard to begin. I mean, you can't really just, oh, what did you do today? Oh, I went out and did ministry in human trafficking. That's a real conversation killer, let me tell you. Or it all of a sudden takes a lot of joy out of people's lives. And yet the amazing thing is that as hard as the topic of human trafficking is, the opportunity to set somebody free is actually joyful. So it's very serious in the moment as far as helping them. But the joy is unrelenting and amazing. And that's an important part of the story too, to talk about the joy that God gives us, you know, and the blessings and the cool things that happen. So next Saturday is July 30th. That's the United Nations World Day Against Trafficking in Persons. That's why we created this public service announcement. It's a great little marketing piece for the organization itself, but we wanted to be able to get people talking and having a conversation about freedom. So we have t-shirts and hats and an apron and a tie. Ernest looked really good in that tie, right? If you're willing to promote next Saturday, take a t-shirt, take a tie. Just promise to wear it on Saturday, or like to work on that Friday to have the conversation. But otherwise, I think that the big thing we need to do is if we could take a moment to pray, I'd ask us to pray. And this is a prayer that's going to go up around the world. Dear Creator of all, we gather together to remember that every child, every woman, every man is a unique image of you. We are grateful for your creative diversity manifest among us. Compassionate Creator, we gather also to grieve the enslavement of children and adults who are victimized by traffickers. We mourn the loss of their dignity and for some the loss of their lives. Loving Creator, we gather also to pledge to act according to our circumstances to stop human trafficking in the geographic area in which we live and in our global home. May we be constant in our prayer and action so that with our global sisters and brothers who are also opposed to trafficking, we might end this horrific tragedy. This we proclaim with persistence and compassion, with faith and hope, with conviction and love. Amen.